Hey guys, it's Marissa at KitchenTableStamper.com. Today I've got another Stamp-A-Stack series for you. Hopefully by now you're familiar with the Kitchen Table Stamper Stamp-A-Stack. This is a class that I will lead you through on my blog, KitchenTableStamper.com. It's a free class. There is an optional kit available for the class. You can get this class kit shipped right to you, and it has all the materials that you need: card kits, envelopes, embellishments, fibers, and designer series paper that you need to make 8 cards. Now the fun part about this Stamp-A-Stack is you can do this Stamp-A-Stack 2 ways. The idea was conceived when the pandemic first hit and we couldn't do in-person classes at Kitchen Table Stamper. I still wanted to provide a class kit to you, but one that would be flexible for the materials that you had in your home. So I developed the Stamp-A-Stack. I do the same Stamp-A-Stack with 2 different stamp sets to illustrate that these are beautiful Seaside Notion and Free as a Bird, but you can use any stamp set that works with the designer series paper and the color palette of this Stamp-A-Stack. All right, so let's get started. Let's take a look first at the cards that you can make. You'll be able to make cards that are 3 of this design. 1, 2, 3. So there's the 3 cards, and then 3 of this design. And 2 of this design. You want to see them in the Free as a Bird version? Here it is again. You'll be able to make either or Seaside Notions or Free as a Bird, or combine it with any stamp set that you have. So here's our first design. Again, I switched up the designer series papers that I chose from the kit and changed the stamp set that I used. So 3 of those, 3 of these. If you love Free as a Bird and Seaside Notions, you can pick those stamp sets up by buzzing over to marisa.alvarez.stampinup.net. You can order those. They'll be delivered right to your door. And 2 of this design. So today, to kind of illustrate the point, I'm going to do a different color palette of designer series papers entirely, but I'm going to demonstrate the cards in a series of 3 videos using the Seaside Notions. Alright, so let's get these guys out of the way. The first thing that you do when you receive a Kitchen Table Stamper Stamp-A-Stack kit is choose your designer series paper and cut it according to the Wonder Recipe. Now the Wonder Recipe printable diagram will be available underneath the embedded video on the blog. Links are in the description. So I'm going to choose my designer series paper palette. I'm not going to copy either of these ideas exactly. For this version, I'm going to go with Balmy Blue, Soft Seafoam, and I think Blushing Bride. So a little bit different from either of the other color palettes. This one is Petal Pink, So Saffron, and Soft Seafoam. This stack is Pool Party, Blushing Bride, and Pear Pizzazz. So as you can see already, it is very customizable. It's something that you can do with the materials that you have in hand. Now I'm going to choose which patterns, because yours will be different depending, and I think that I like it this way. I love that wood grain, but I want to represent all 3 patterns. Now we're going to cut this according to the Wonder Recipe, and you can just print that right off and follow along. I've got my trimmer here. Okay guys, so the first thing you're going to do with the kit is cut your paper. If you've got a directional pattern, you want that pattern to be facing in the right orientation when you put it in the trimmer. So I've got a text paper and my text reads left to right and it's right side up. So that's how we're going to start, is with our directional paper in the right orientation. For Wonder Recipe number 9, the first cut you're going to make is at 3 1/4, and you're going to cut straight down 3 1/4. Set this piece aside. This one is 2 3/4, and you just need to set it aside for a minute. Now you're gonna rotate your paper and cut 1 inch, and then cut 1 inch, and then rotate your paper again. So you'll rotate to the right, and you'll cut 1 inch and 1 inch. So that's the first half of your paper with the Wonder Recipe, number 9. Second half, so here's your 2 3/4 by 6 inch piece. Put this in and cut off 3 inches. And then you're going to rotate and cut in half at 1 3/8. And that's it. That's Wonder Recipe. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the other 2 pieces the same way. You've chosen 3 colors. You're gonna cut them the same way. And then we'll go through sorting your pieces into your kits. Okay, so we've got all the pieces in all 3 colors. Let's sort them out. We're gonna get 8 cards from this designer series paper. Okay, our first design is this design here. These are the 1 by 3 1/4 inch pieces, 1 of each color. So we're gonna go into our kit and we're going to find the card kit that has this punched label in it. Or if you're making your own cards from the Wonder Recipe, then you'll sort these pieces out for your first 2 cards. All right, so my kit, here's my kit with the story label punch. And we're going to do for each of these kits, these shorter 1 inch pieces. So we're making 2 kits with the shorter 1 inch pieces. Notice how you've got a longer piece and a shorter piece. So there's the shorter pieces. Now we want to go through on our balmy blue, 1 for each kit, and then our blushing bride, 1 for each kit. There's our first 2 designs. And I like to just drop them into the kit. And we're ready for our first 2 designs. That's these. Now our next design is this fun seashell, here's to you card. The kit's with the stitched circle and the label inside. And what we need for that kit is the square, or the 2 3/4 by 3 inch piece. So we have 1, 2, 3 cards in this design. And now with those go the other 2 colors with the 1 3/8 by 3 inch pieces. So we'll put a blue one with the green. We'll put a pink one with the green. We'll put a blushing bride with the balmy blue and a soft seafoam with the balmy blue. We'll put a soft seafoam with the blushing bride. And we'll put a balmy blue with the blushing bride. So there are our next 3 kits. Let's drop those guys in. So now our designer series paper is all cut. We got the last 3 cards. It's this fun design right here. It's got this long rectangle label in it if you're looking for your kit. And what we're going to do with this one is the same kind of style. We've got a bigger or a wider strip in each of the colors. These are 1 1/4 inch wide. And we have 1 inch wide strips left. And you're going to put them so that each pile has 1 of each color. So each pile has 1 of each color. Those are the designer series paper for your last 3 cards. And that's our Wonder Recipe number 9. The next thing I like to do when I'm working with the Seaside Notions or the Stamp-A-Stack kit is stamp my images. So you'll have the neutral cardstock. This time we're using Very Vanilla or a Whisper White cardstock in your kit. And you're going to stamp your images now. So you're going to use whatever images you like from whichever stamp set you like, but you want to stamp them out because we're stamping a stack. So stamp them, color them, and cut them out. Our first design is this seahorse with the coral and the sand dollars and the little clamshell. So we're going to make the first design, and we'll stamp as we go in the videos so that you can follow along on a card by card basis. Also in this video, we're going to just do card design number 1. So it's 2 of these cards. The kit will make 2 of these cards, and let's get started. We're going to pull the card bases out of the kit and background stamp. Now if you're doing the Stamp-A-Stack style and you want to, you can do all 8 backgrounds at one time. I highly recommend it. I'm using the birch background from Stampin' Up. It's a cling mount background and fabulously neutral. I love this background stamp. Let's get it on our surface here. I like to put my background stamp on the surface. We're going to ink up with Misty Moonlight ink for our Misty Moonlight card bases. We'll fold and burnish the card base. It'll come pre-scored for you if you are making your own cards and following along with the class online. You're going to do 8.5 by 5.5, score at 4 1/4, fold it up to make a standard A2 card. Now you'll just drop the card on the birch background, add a piece of small grid paper over the top, and then just burnish with your fingers to get an impression. I find that this is the best way to get a complete background impression. I don't use a block, unless I use a small one. Sometimes I'll use a small one instead of my fingertips. I just lay the stamp ink side up and apply the card to the stamp. Now, when I lift, you'll see we've got a perfectly complete image. I'm going to go ahead and stamp our second card of this design, and I'll meet you back here for some more stamping. All right, so we've got 2 card bases all stamped in your kit. We have a story label. This is cut from Very Vanilla, and we did these ahead of time for you with the story label punch. If you don't have that one, you can substitute a label that you have. We're going to switch now to basic gray ink. Now at this point you want to choose your greeting. I'm using With Gratitude from Seaside Notions. And let's stamp those all the way at the top because we're going to run a little bit of our gorgeous ribbon along the bottom of the label. And then your kit also came with some Very Vanilla cardstock. And we're going to stamp our images in basic gray. So I've already done a couple of seahorses and some clam shells. I had those from designing the project, so I'm just going to use those guys. And we want to also stamp a couple of coral. I highly recommend that if you're doing this Stamp-A-Stack style, that you just stamp all your images on these half sheets of vanilla cardstock and stamp them all at once and paint them all at once. But for the sake of the video, we're going to break out each individual card and its pieces. So we need 2 sand dollars, we need 2 corals, we need 2 clam shells, and we need 2 seahorses. I'm going to paint these guys with ink and a aqua painter using the coordinating ink for the designer series paper colors I chose. So my seahorse is going to be Misty Moonlight, and I just smash some ink onto the top of the ink pad. Just squeeze your ink pad to apply the ink, and then I just move in and apply the ink to the stamped image, and you can see that as I move away from that initial application of ink, the brush just works itself clean and you have a higher water to ink ratio. and therefore you get those highlights and shadows. So you can see that when I apply the brush, it's very dark, but as I move away from that initial area, we get highlights. Very simple technique. You can go back with some dark and really darken your shadows if you like. Don't be afraid of the dark, I always say. So we'll dark our shadows, and we'll dark along the back of the seahorse tail here, so we really get some contrast between the highlights and the shadows. It'll dry a little bit lighter, so keep that in mind as you're trying to color. And there's our seahorse. Now you want to clean your brush before you go to the next. And we're using basic gray as our outline, so let's do our clam shells with basic gray. And I will paint one on camera and then one off camera. Basic gray, we're just swirling the water into the ink that's on the cover. We're going to start at the back of the shell and create a shadow, and then move towards the front of the shell and make a highlight. I'll do another one of those. Start at the back of the shell, really saturate that ink, and then clean out the brush as you move towards the front of the shell. That'll give you some nice highlights and shadows. We're going to clean the brush, and let's move on to our little coral and sand dollars. I'm using soft sea foam. So I've got a puddle of ink there, but I'll give a little squeeze, get a little more ink. There's soft sea foam, and do the same thing with the blushing bride. So it doesn't matter which style ink pad you have, you can just give a little crush in the center and it'll make a little puddle of ink for you. So there's my palette. My water brush is clean. Now for the sand dollar, I want a very soft pink blush on it. So I'm gonna go with a clean wet brush, wet the entire sand dollar, swirl around in the palette, pick up some paint, and then go from one side in kind of a crescent movement, applying more ink to the left side and washing out that color as I move to the right. Let's do that again. We're gonna wet the whole sand dollar. It's okay, it's a little pink. Pick up some more ink and work a shadow in on the left side of the sand dollar. So there's our little sand dollars. And clean our brush. For the coral, I'm gonna just wipe over the coral with a wet brush. Pick up seafoam, some soft seafoam ink, and then fill in. And as I move away from the base, you see that the seafoam's getting lighter and lighter, so I'll pick up some more ink and work in where the artist made these little dot patterns. That can be like your shadowed area. So start in that area and then move away, letting the brush run out color. And pick up some more, drop back in that shadow area that the artist has indicated, and add some shadow. Work away, and then where it's pale, pick up some ink and start back up where the artist indicated shadow with the little dot pattern. And so you get a nice variation of lighter and darker greens, and it's consistent with the lines that the artist drew in for you. All right, I'm gonna color this last seahorse and the last coral, and then I'm gonna cut them out. Just fussy cut them with scissors, and I'll meet you right here when my pieces are all cut. Okay, so I've cut each of my colored images, and now for the sake of the video, we're only gonna assemble one of these, although the kit makes two, the Wonder Recipe makes two. We're just gonna assemble one, so let's sort our pieces. One of each image for each card. I'm gonna put this one for assembly after the video. And let's work on this one. So we've cut our designer series paper and sorted it. It's there in our kit. Let's grab some adhesive. I've got some multi-purpose liquid glue here, and we're going to adhere our strips. Now, since we're not copying exactly, let's decide what order we want them in. I think I like the green along the bottom. So at kind of a tippy angle, about 1/4 of an inch, 3/16 of an inch from the bottom. I'm gonna go with the blue on the top this time. Watch your directional paper. That one's got lead text on it. We want it to be right side up. This one is also kind of to the left of center, about 1/4 of an inch from the top. Little tippy angle. And then our wood grain. Let's add that one. I want that little like knot pattern to show. About maybe 1/4 of an inch in between, off to the right of center, and adhere down. Our With Gratitude label gets adhered down. Little multi-purpose liquid glue. And that's gonna just touch the top curve to our designer series paper, about 1/4 of an inch from the right. Got some tear and tape adhesive here. We're gonna run a strip about 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch shorter than our designer series paper, and just burnish that down. Got my take your pick tool. I'm gonna remove the adhesive liner here. And then in your kit, you'll find that there is a yard of this gorgeous woven vanilla ribbon and 2 yards of the gold cord. For this card, want to cut yourself off about 5.5 inches of ribbon. And you'll start the ribbon in the tear and tape, just a little short of the designer series paper. When you get a little less than halfway across the label, then you'll pleat your ribbon and adhere it into the tear and tape. Pleat your ribbon, adhere it into the tear and tape. Pleat your ribbon, and then finish it off in the tear and tape. So you got the little pleats there. Then cut an angle to finish your ribbon. And we're gonna add glue dots to hold down our pleats. So I've got my mini glue dots. We need 3 of them, 1 for each pleat. I like to pick it up with the end of the take your pick tool, right underneath the pleat, and adhere. That gives your pleats more stability and better connection to the card. But what a fun way to use ribbon, don't you think? All right, now we need dimensional adhesive on all of our cutout pieces. I'm gonna add some dimensionals to the back. For my coral, I am only adding dimensionals at the ends of the little branches. Can you call them branches? That's what they look like to me, is like branches. So just little pieces at the very end, and that'll be the piece that goes on first here. You'll add that one so that it doesn't go off the folded edge of your card. And then your seahorse is next. You might have to adjust your coral a little bit depending on the tail of your seahorse to come up past gratitude but not cover the greeting. When you've got position that you like, you can burnish everybody down. Little clamshell goes off on the end of the greeting here. And your silver dollar, sand dollar gets tucked right in next to the coral and the seahorse. Then you're gonna grab your embellishment again and get some of this gold twine and tie a bow. So I got some of this gold twine. It's gonna ravel at the ends, it just does. So sometimes if there's a big space that's unraveled, I'll just trim. But otherwise I'm just embracing it because it's the characteristic of this twine. It unravels. And I think that looks a little beachy. You'll see in one of our designs we're actually gonna unravel the woven ribbon too. So we're just gonna tie a bow, cut it away from the spool, little multi-purpose liquid glue on the knot. And then we're going to add that right up on the edge of our sand dollar and let that dry. So there's our first design with gratitude in 2 color palettes from the same kit. If you've got any questions about how to cut your paper for Wonder Recipe number 9, about watercoloring on the Very Vanilla cardstock, about the Stamp-A-Stack kit, they are available while supplies last at the Kitchen Table Stamper store. You can email Marisa at kitchentablestamper.com and shop Stampin' Up! 24/7, pick up Seaside Notions or the very beautiful Free as a Bird stamp set, buzz over to marisaalvarez.stampinup.net. Thanks for watching.